Hey guys, welcome to a special edition of Transit Talk. We will be discussing the full moon happening on Halloween 2020, October 31st. So I don't think I'm necessarily going to do new moon and full moon transit talks going forward, but I feel like this one really packs a punch, and I was gonna just kind of kick myself if I didn't do one. We have some really important stuff going on here. If you guys have been following along on Instagram, maybe you saw a tidbit of that in this week's free tarot reading. If you're not following on Instagram, I encourage you to do so. It's Tarot with Tyler. And yeah, we have free weekly readings there and like mini posts about certain things that are happening and even some numerology too. So this is gonna be quite a doozy of a Halloween. It's not all bad, but I will say that staying protected, staying safe is of the utmost importance. Already a lot of people tend to take advantage of the fear that surrounds the event, and I think really in recent years people have been abusing kind of like wearing masks and dressing up and doing harmful things to people and taking it like past like a prank, you know what I mean, to where we're into like the purge territory and stuff like that, to where it's like really serious stuff. And usually with Halloween, I'd say like it's a great time for us to, in a healthy way, express our inner demons. Because we do need a time to release that stuff. We all keep some of the darker aspects of our personalities locked up inside that Scorpio Pluto stuff, and it needs to come out every once in a while, because the more we try to suppress it, the more we try to pretend that it's not there, usually the more damage it does. So you know, if you are somebody that like, you know, always claims that they're just a wholly good person, that, you know, they never do anything wrong, it's okay. Like really, you know, we're all human. We have these animalistic instincts, whether we accept them or not, because that's where we've come from, where we've evolved from. And Scorpio season really asks us to look at those evolutions of ourselves and see how they're continually stacking upon one another. They're building a more solid foundation every cycle, every year. And that foundation is extremely important when we look at a Taurus full moon. You know, it's very much putting into perspective everything we've been working towards, the success and the losses that we've had up to this point, and really like focusing in on that, seeing what we could have done differently, maybe how we didn't stick to our words, maybe how we had some impulses, some of those demons that kind of came out and maybe you know, skewed our goal or our target, you know, and sometimes, you know, that stuff does come up for a reason. And you know, whether it's like having an affair, or whether it's stealing from somebody, or, you know, just lying, you know, it doesn't always have to be the most extreme scenario. I know we think that when we look at Scorpio energy, but it's not all bad. Scorpio energy is necessary to push us further, without fear, without friction, without having a comfort zone. We would never aspire to be anything different than who we are. The implication of those things, that there is a good and bad, or there is always progress, there is a journey, keeps us continually evolving, bettering ourselves, and pushing past our scarier moments. You know, like, what do you do when you feel cornered? What do you do when you feel pressurized, like everything's waiting or depending on what you're about to do? You know, those scary moments in our lives are very much Scorpio influenced, or Pluto influenced. And Taurus full moon balances out that nature. You know, when we have a full moon, it is exactly opposite of the sun's position. And so we're going to see the opposite sign of what the sun is in. So Scorpio and Taurus axis here. And so this is a great opportunity for us to already have a glimpse of the future success that we can accomplish on this road of evolution. And you know, this is not just financial success, but it's also a sense of security, a sense of stability. It is very much building a life, if you will. You know, whenever we look at Taurus, they are the architects, they are the master builders of the zodiac, and it takes a very, very firm foundation when we do anything in our lives for it to really hold up over the years, over time. And you can think of the full moon in Taurus as being, you know, what you've been working towards from the last 6 months, from when the new moon happened in Taurus season. It could be even farther than that. Could have been a year ago or a year and a half ago. You know, in 6 months increments, you'll see like there's a pattern with this part of your life, with, you know, purchases, with investments, you know, and even taking on something for someone else. Scorpio brings out this need, not necessarily to just help people, but it's almost to like oversee a situation or someone else's finances or their belongings, or it's like taking care of something for someone else, because Scorpio doesn't have its own possessions. That's not its nature. Its nature is to be without, or to be constantly evolving, which means shedding and bringing in new things. And so there's never anything very firm or solid in their life to begin with. But when we look at Taurus, it's very much the opposite. These are the people that sometimes will even build what's around them. They'll make furniture, they'll paint, they'll decorate, they'll you know, really curate the space that they live in and make it very much them, very personal. And so you see that dynamic of like not having something versus having everything, and how it's a really interesting axis to work with. And yeah, it's like sometimes I feel like the full moons and stuff we kind of skate the meaning of them. They're actually a little harder to understand. And just like working with opposite energy, you know, like it's a little more complex. There's two sides to it. And so it's hard to just narrow in on one way when we have a whole season that we're exploring and a full moon in the opposite sign in the midst of it. But I do think that this really gives us a glimpse of what we can achieve when we're looking at Earth energy, when we're looking at Taurus. Like, okay, this is the foundation I want for myself. This is a step in the right direction. You know, this is how I want it to look. You know, it's very much claiming something. It's like saying like, this is mine. This sometimes can be a little possessive. So if you feel like you don't want to share something, or whether that's something physical or it's a secret even, you know, and there's a lot of trust issues that come up with this axis too, because you have the devotional Taurus that really stands by its word, is Venus ruled. So there is this charm about it, which we may think, you know, maybe makes it more deceptive, or that there is stuff going on behind closed doors. But ultimately, Taurus in astrology represents commitment and devotion, and that usually translates to staying true to their word, staying honest, staying transparent, things like that. And Scorpio is the darker aspects of us, you know, and that's not something that we should shy away from. That's not something that we should have such a stigma about. It's okay to have many layers internally and to explore them when they call for attention. Yeah, and so this will be a really interesting time once we get into the deeper astrology going forward. So this card was coming up a lot when I was asking, what is the focus? And this is it, Page of Pentacles. So this is really finding success. Where do we look to find success in our lives? This is a bigger question than just like, where is the money for us? No, it's like, where is our foundation? Where is our future? Even though we're looking with earth energy, which seems very past oriented, you have to build a future. And so this is really about starting something new, but something that will last a long time. So if the full moon is hitting you a little more sensitively and you feel without stability, without a foundation, that's why it's coming up, because we have to reassess, we have to realign, especially this year after so much has gone on and hit us from all directions. So many people's personal lives are taking the most dramatic turns, and we are really assessing, what do we want? What can we claim anymore? Like, what have we been able to hold on to through all of this? What hasn't dropped by the wayside? And whether it's a relationship, whether it is savings, whether, if you had a business and the business went under because of COVID, if you had really good health and you were hospitalized, if your relationship has suffered because you were stuck together indoors and that was just a very, very challenging dynamic. And there's all kinds of different ways that our stability and our foundations have shaken. And this is kind of telling us, like, stay optimistic. There are really prosperous things ahead. We just need to seek them out. The page is like the explorer. It's like, I think it's a little more fun than the knight. The knight is very purpose oriented. It's much like, okay, here's my agenda. Here's what I've been ordered to do. It's kind of like the soldier of the tarot, and it's very streamlined. It's very straightforward. There's not a lot of confusion when you look at the knights. They kind of know what they're after, but the pages are almost these like wanderer types that are coming into your life. And maybe somebody like this has come into your life recently that doesn't really have a solid foundation, doesn't really know what they want, and has just been through situation and situation on a constant evolution of sorts, but has never really found a stable place to stay put, and just doesn't have a lot of stability in general. And so if this person is coming up for you, they really are there for a reason, and you're building something with this person. But in a deeper sense, this is applying to all of us. With this full moon is accessible to all, and especially depending on where it falls in your chart, will kind of give you the most indication of what the focus is for you, and kind of where to put your money, where to put your investment, where to start building. Where do you have the biggest room for success? Those are the kind of questions that we're asking when we get this card. And there is a sense of optimism with this card. Love the yellow. The green shows that there's this really genuine need to work, to begin, to grow. And there's a sense of optimism about this person. Maybe they have this internal confidence, and you're just like, where did they get it from? Because it seems like their life is just constantly like changing, and it's just not firm in any ways. And it's something to kind of behold or bewitched by. And somebody like this can be kind of very alluring. The earth can be very physical, and so that can relate to having a physical attraction to this person. But yeah, somebody that questions a lot, page, almost like a student, that's always kind of seeking a new perspective or a new way of looking at things, and just doesn't really want to stick to any one channel. And so this is what we're really facing. I don't think this is a bad thing in any ways, but I do think that for a lot of people, this means that they don't have as much as they want right now. They aren't satisfied. And so really assessing where we need to buckle down on, make a schedule, make a to-do list, like start getting things going, really set up where it is that we need to be doing the work, in a bigger sense, not just physical labor or like actual career stuff, but like the real work inside and out. So just thought I'd draw at least one card there for us. So just starting here, I do want to mention before we jump into the signs that this is happening at 8 degrees. So 8 degrees Scorpio, 8 degrees Taurus, the moon, they're exact opposite, full moon and sun. And 8 degrees Uranus conjunction with the moon, because Uranus has been hanging out in Taurus and it will be for a few more years. And this can really bring some dramatic and swift changes. Uranus is very unpredictable energy, and that's why I err on the side of caution with going out, taking to the streets. Uranus is like our humanitarian activism need, and so is Scorpio too when it's charged and ready for some revolution, which we've been seeing this year. And so I feel like this very much translates to us being out on the streets around this time, and how there is almost like a lack of safety when we do that, putting ourselves in vulnerable positions. And Mercury, especially our communication hiccups, because it is squaring both Pluto and Saturn, especially on Halloween. So Mercury will be squaring Saturn at 26 degrees. So if you have anything at that degree specifically, it's going to play an emphasis in your Halloween this year. You might want to look into that. And it just kind of shows that those two entities are kind of, they're at a tug of war almost. They're at a standstill. Squares, have to work with each other, even though they really, really don't want to. It's like being partnered with the last person that you want to be partnered with in class. You're just like, oh, no, my best friend. And it's like whammy. And you just like, oh gosh, like you already know it's going to be hard before it even happens, before you're actually sitting together and trying to work it out. That's kind of what a square is. Mercury is in the sign of Libra and it's retrograde, and so we're trying to get right on our deeper relationships, the people that are important in our lives, and really appreciating them. Venus is in Libra as well, and so there's a lot of air momentum happening with the feminine, and it can make things very confusing, very hard to understand with the people in our lives, and maybe we're having to revisit certain conversations again and again. If you find some repetition happening, that's very common, because it almost seems like nothing really sinks in the first time around when Mercury's in retro. They're not paying full attention. They're distracted, or, for whatever reason, it just doesn't click. And it takes like a second lap. And Saturn is very much like, I should only have to say this once, like Saturn isn't very naturally helpful or understanding. And so it tends to put up barriers. It tends to err on the side of difficulty. It's a more malefic planet, which means that it's harder to work with. It's not evil, but it is naturally more difficult. It is more challenging to overcome Saturn placements and Saturn transits, and with Mercury and Saturn squaring each other on Halloween, the exact degrees, 26 degrees, it really just feels like the conversations that we're having, are they in alignment with what we're trying to produce here, what we are working towards, and getting right on all that stuff. Do you feel like you're just generally very distracted right now in your life, and you're just not clearly making decisions. You are second guessing yourself a lot. You're just not moving very confidently forward. That stuff is very natural with Mercury retro. And Saturn is just like, just do the damn thing, like commit to something and just produce. It's very impatient when it comes to indecision or anything murky. Like Saturn doesn't like not knowing like where people stand, or especially if they have like some kind of inkling that someone's not following the rules, like they're going to look into it. They're going to get involved. They're gonna start that mission, because to them that's like rooting out like the evil or the bad. But in a sense, it's more of a lack of understanding that everybody approaches things differently. And just because there are rules and structure doesn't mean that everybody's going to fit into the box. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's very hard to understand. And with me, I think that implicates a lot of law enforcement is ruled by Saturn. It's an entity of government. It's an entity that enforces the rules, limitations, and punishes us for any perceived wrongdoing. So when it's squaring Mercury, our second guessing, it's almost like we turn down the wrong street and maybe someone catches us not wearing our seatbelt, or we bump into a car because we weren't paying close attention, or someone's talking to us on the phone and we didn't hear the siren that was coming up and we didn't pull over for, like the ambulance to go by us. Like those are the kinds of things that I feel like are going to be very prevalent around this time. And it's not because we were intentionally making bad decisions. It was almost like our attention just isn't where it normally is, and neither are our instincts. So we're kind of falling into these traps, if you will. We're forgetting things, or so that's why there's a lot more hesitation that I'm conveying about Halloween, because I just feel like when we're not seeing things and taking them in, and just kind of like in the right frame of mind, that can make us more susceptible for bad things, or more accident prone, and just more difficulty in general. So you never really want to have to do something twice, right? Like that's never fun. So just watch out for little patterns like that. And let's get into the signs. So I already said at 8 degrees, if you have anything in your chart at 8 degrees, this is a very significant event for you. And look at where 8 degrees of Taurus is in your chart, and that is going to give you a really good picture of where this is playing out. Now, when we look at all the signs, Aries, Taurus everything is where it normally is with an Aries rising, or the personality of an Aries. So when I say, or I'm talking about a sign, I look at how everything would fall if we're talking about the sign like as a rising sign. But that's really the identity and personality of that sign too. So for instance, like if we're talking about a Cancer rising, the 4th house is ruled by Libra, and that is the personality of a Cancer in that faction of its life. It's not just correlating to that as a rising sign. That actually gives you a glimpse into how the sign is as a whole. And like it values home life, it values communication and balancing out, almost negotiating between family members, and like, breaking ground, or like finding common ground, because families often have a lot of differences in opinions and perceptions, and especially relationship stuff. If you bring someone new into the family, that can be very polarizing depending on how those interactions go, and that all seems very Libra. And so that's kind of what you see with the home life of a Cancer. I hope that makes sense. Please ask me if you need any more clarity on that. But that's how I've been looking at it for a long time, and that seems to really jive with me. Just pictorially, like in my mind, like, okay, this falls da 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 da. So yeah, so let's talk about Aries. I mean, the energy presents very not authentically, or very straightforward. You know, Taurus is in your second house, because Aries keeps everything in alignment when we look at that rising. So your second house, you guys are really susceptible to money woes during this full moon. I mean, we all are, but it's like in your house of money. So it's gonna either be really, really great or really, really bad. With Uranus there, it usually brings more of those tower moments out, those really unexpected outcomes. And so hitting from like out of the blue, like, you know, something really unexpected happening, like maybe an error occurred at the ATM and it deducted more from your account than the cash that you actually got from it. You know, maybe a lot of technology involvement, like if you've been Venmoing somebody and you thought it went through and it didn't, and now you don't have enough money in your account to pay for the thing, like stuff like that is very common. Or even, you know, like something that you possess, like breaking all of a sudden, you know, like I feel like that would be very expected, like a prized possession, like, you know, a collection of yours, or even like losing something, just something like that. Maybe even a friend steps in and takes it to take care of it for you, but you guys don't communicate right, and so you are left not knowing when it was safe all along. So look out for interesting things like that. You know, expect the unexpected, especially for you guys, and just try to take care, like be a little more cautious than usual. Yeah. All right, so Taurus, this is really your time to shine. You know, full moons bring out the best and worst of the sign that they're in, and I will say that you guys are exalted when we look at the moon. The moon in Taurus is a great place for the moon to be. That's its exaltation, which means it's very comfortable there. It presents in a very naturalist way, even though it's not in its ruling sign of Cancer. It's still very much supported by Taurus energy when the moon is there. So I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I will say, again, with Uranus being right next to it in its retrograde, that's not the most positive thing to have, because you can feel like, oh my God, I feel like something's about to happen, and I don't know what, but there's this sense of like abrupt change coming, something unexpected, something not planned for, and you guys are all about having a plan, having a foundation, and you're very susceptible for that being shaken right now. And so what you've been working towards, what you've been building, it might literally fall apart, or you just may have to make adjustments to it, you know, like that piece is no longer available, and so you have to reassess, well, how are you going to put this together? Or you know, your bank goes like AWOL, or you can't reach out to anybody that you need to about money matters. Yeah, stuff like that. And even power stuff, you know, it's like Taurus rules power, and so like electricity is a big thing, and especially with Uranus right there, it's highly charged energy, because Uranus a lot of times represents lightning. You know, it's something that happens very, very fast and unexpected and can be extremely destructive, but it's more so like randomized, like you never know which tree is going to get hit, kind of a thing. So it's almost very hard to plan for, and it's kind of foolish almost to plan for, because you just don't know what's going to happen. But just surrender, just know that like you are safe despite whatever circumstances coming up, and it could very well be a really good thing, really good change that's going to catapult you further down the road, because that's Uranus. It's like opening our vision, you know, and seeing like all of the pieces working simultaneously. And it can be information overload, and you're just like, whoa, I'm not ready to see all of this yet. But ultimately, there's a lot of answers that come when we look at that energy, and that can be very helpful. All right, so Gemini, this will be happening in your 12th house, so be very careful around Halloween. This is the fear house. You could get really spooked. You may have a lot more nervous energy, not feeling very centered and grounded, and feeling a lot more vulnerable. And whether that is like the reality of it or it's just an internal sense coming up, that's for you to assess. But if you're feeling that kind of way, odds are maybe don't put yourself in any situations that are going to be extremely scary or going to drudge up something in you that is, you know what I mean, is going to make you feel like kind of cornered or just very vulnerable. So be cautious of that, especially letting the fear of this event bringing up addiction issues for you guys, your 12th house, channeling that into more spiritual focus, you know, like doing more yoga or trying meditation for a time. So you are getting some sense of imagination or out of body experience, but it's not literally doing harm to your body, like, you know, having a lot more drinks than you should, or combining that with weed or whatever the substance is. Yeah, and you may want to cling to somebody for some sort of support. And they may be there, but like you're also not going to feel like they're out on the same level or page as you with Mercury in retro. So Venus shows that there are very supportive relationships out there right now. It's in Libra, it's home planet, home sign. But you're not going to feel like you're in the same place with that person, with Mercury giving us this disconnected feeling. And for Pisces being so empathic, that's very important for you guys. Like when you're around somebody, to really feel what they're feeling. And when that feeling is confused or altered, that can like drive us a little more crazy. So Gemini, I would say really, really be cautious. You are making that square to Saturn. So there is kind of this sense that you guys could really be in trouble if you do something a little questionable. So I would just say not to do it, because there's not going to be a lot of people that are going to understand or try to kind of see it from your side. So yeah, if you're already in your feels, like I would just say try not to do much. Cancer, so this is happening in your 11th house. So you are probably connecting to a lot of new people from different walks of life, maybe you know, social media, you know, very technology heavy. Aquarius connects us to different parts of the world, and kind of allows for some flexibility, you know, allows for us to throw ideas at one another and see what resonates. But there's a lot of interaction with other people, and especially because Uranus is playing a really big emphasis on this full moon, so it's even double the energy. So you guys can just feel like there's a whole lot of weird happening for you during this event, and you're just like, I like it. I don't know. You're feeling a little more explorative and rebellious than normal. Like you just don't want to do your more routine Halloween decorations or events, and a lot of things aren't routine this year because everything has been so different, and we're still not fully capable of just living life the way we used to. And so you're really finding ways to evolve and change that, change the look of it and change how you celebrate it, and even the fears that come with it. So there may be some opportunities for you to really unlock some insights as to what's going on in your life around this time, and to really see where you want to be down the road. You know, 11th house is really long-term things. So still prone to some unexpected happenings. So be cautious. I'm telling this to all the signs, but yeah, you guys definitely have more of that Uranus energy playing out. So Be very aware of your finances, what is coming and going. Maybe double check. Mercury in retro is asking us to do things twice. So double check, triple check it if you need to, before you're sure about if you have to make a decision or something like that around this time. So, all right, Leo, let's see here. So Leo, I remember in this week's reading that we had that includes Halloween, that it's going to be a really exciting time. The Ten of Pentacles, it looks like we are ready for a celebration of any kind. I wouldn't say Halloween is like our go-to, our favorite event of the year, but it seems like we really just want some sort of party, some sort of almost like controlled adventure. And Ten of Pentacles shows us like really reaping what our efforts have been up to this point, fighting the good fight, staying patient even through the harder times, and just doing the work. So if that sounds like you recently, get ready to enjoy this event. Still stay mindful, stay cautious, practice COVID safety. And yeah, this will be happening in your 10th house of career. So, there's some job stuff that is very likely taking off for you guys because you've got double earth energy happening. And maybe there are some unexpected offers, like ones you haven't considered, freelance work, or from people connecting you and they're like, hey, I just saw this on my social media the other day. I think you would really like it. Like just, being receptive to the opportunities that the universe is handing you right now. Like it wants you to make money. It wants you to be successful. And so seize those opportunities and just do it, try not to question it too much unless it just really feels like it's something that you can't honestly do with integrity. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like it's completely not you. And it can feel like with Uranus playing so close to the moon that what is going on in our lives right now feels so foreign and feels so distant from who we are. And so that can be kind of like jarring, to be like, I know myself so well. Like, I don't know what these last couple of days or who that has been. Like, it just seems so not me. And Scorpio season can really bring up that different side of us almost, that pushes us through our comfort zone and finds a way somehow. It's like that Jeff Goldblum quote on Jurassic Park, life finds a way. It's just like we just keep doing it, we keep evolving. So yeah, definitely. And Virgo, so let's look at Virgo. This will be happening in your 9th house. I'm always excited about 9th house stuff. It's a very fun house. Very much is like the carnival. It's like the fun house. It's like the least, I don't know, I'm sure it's scary to some people. Maybe it's like the Ferris wheel. That seems more accurate. It gives you almost like a bird's eye view, but there's like a lot of bright lights and it's huge, and it's the first thing that you notice probably at a carnival. And so you guys are braving it. You're feeling more adventurous. You want to do the things. You're saying yes. Yeah, and it looks really good on you. 9th house is allowing you to expand spiritually. You're taking on more. This can lead to maybe overindulging to kind of offset the new responsibilities or the new things that you're doing. So, watch your weight, watch your routines, your exercise, make sure you're balancing that stuff out. And not just saying yes to everything everyone puts in front of you, like you guys normally do. But I think ultimately this is a good time for you to have some fun. Halloween may make you a little more accident prone, so be cautious. Double tie your shoes. Like I was telling Cancer, double, triple check things if you have anything to do with money. It's very important. But yeah, there's a much needed sense of exploration for you guys right now, of learning, of taking almost a philosophical approach and questioning, like, you know, what is the deeper meaning of this? What is its purpose? What is its utility? But not being serious about it is like being receptive to what the universe has to say. So you guys have some very existential questions, and you'll find some really inspiring answers this time. So cool things there. Libra. So Libra, you will be having this in your 8th house. Yeah, so this is a really interesting place to be during Scorpio season. So you guys have the opposite. So where the full moon in Taurus is happening in your 8th house, the sun in Scorpio is in your 2nd. And so it's actually reversed where it is when we look at the sky. Like all things with you, everything is opposite. And so this energies always present themselves differently for you. You're more reflective. It's more about the look or the appearance of it as opposed to the internal. So it's a lot harder to understand, and maybe you guys always feel like things do happen differently for you than they do for other people. They just culminate in a different way. And maybe they're a little more abstract or harder to understand. But 8th house is really getting you to where you need to be financially. So you are really stepping up to the plate, and you're realizing how fast the money is disappearing. You know, with your taste, Venus and Libra wants to spend, wants to look amazing, but you're just like, oh, that quickly, like those 20s in my wallet or purse, like just flew like before I blinked, you know, with like the really long fake eyelashes. You're like, no. So being very cautious, you know, there's a definitely sexual emphasis to this placement. So doing that in the best sense, the healthiest sense, yes, find release. Like you guys need release right now because you're going to feel this pent up energy with this 8th house full moon, but doing it with somebody that has your back, that is a stable source of expression for you, and not going into the affair realm, because that's very dangerous. As with all things this year, they are coming out with, you know, this huge punch, and so doing anything kind of ulterior motive wise is not recommended. So yeah, find ways to let that side of you out and not destroy your life. So that'll be really important. Scorpio, so this is exciting to have a full moon in your season. This only happens once a year, so this is always a time for you to really see how far you've come. Full moon in Taurus. So 6 months ago, there was a new moon in Taurus, and now it's full. So you guys feel like you're really on the verge of accomplishing a lot. This is happening in your 7th house of relationships. So you may even feel that flirty dating, the date bug coming in, and, you know, putting some butterflies in your stomach where there usually aren't any. And you're like nervous, but excited nervous about the people coming into your life right now. And just really connecting in a much more fulfilling way. You'll find that things are getting easier, things are getting more enjoyable with the people around you. Again, Mercury retro, we're still not seeing eye to eye on everything, but Venus is making the experiences a little lighter and not as serious as like the normal Scorpio energy. That is much more critical, more skeptical, and is just more challenging to work with in general. You know, this is your time to really feel the sun's energy and to feel this kind of revitalization. You know, when we get to our season, we get this sense of like, we can do it. We're very positive. We are very us focused. And so we're putting things into perspective, and we're feeling like recharged and revamped. And you know, that starts like a new cycle for us. When the sun comes to us, it's like starting a new year. It's called your solar return. And so this is a very fun time for you guys, and you're starting out with some really good investments, some really good money stuff. Because I don't think Uranus is typically a bad thing for you. I think that you guys are very Uranian in nature, and that you do strive for evolution, for trying things that others would deem inappropriate or just not right or traditional, like breaking the mold. And so I think you work pretty well with it. It is in your fourth house when we look at Aquarius, but I think it's something that you know very well and are comfortable with. And so you're well set up to take on this energy, and just see how it's affecting those that you really care about. So maybe they're going through some money woes. Maybe you can help them out. That humanitarian side of you maybe wants to support other people right now, lend a hand. Okay, so Sagittarius. So this is happening in your sixth house of work. It's different from the 10th house. 10th house is more career related. It's the bigger accomplishments. Whether you're getting promotions, whether you're getting fired, whether you're going through some sort of revamp at work, like a new program, a new rule, new management. But the Virgo, the sixth house, is like the smaller routine things. And so we see that the way that you're handling money, the foundation of your routines are changing a little bit. So almost like your role is changing a little bit. Not necessarily that you got a promotion or a demotion. That can be the effect, but there's smaller adjustments happening. So really not too much to get worried about. I would say this is the sign of health. So with health matters, this is one to be a lot more cautious with. So what you're taking in, your daily regimen, make sure that it's really working for you and not against you. If you're oversleeping, overeating, overdoing it like usual, Sagittarius doesn't know when to say when. It's almost like, how the servers come at your table when you're at Olive Garden and they do the cheese and they like, tell me when, and Sagittarius is just like, you know what I mean? He just never says when. Like, you guys just really just want it all. And yeah, Scorpio season can bring that out in us too. It can make us very envious. It can make us very hungry and like very desired, because we don't necessarily have a lot when we look at Scorpio season. That's where it plays out in our chart, is where we're usually without something and that we have to constantly work hard to achieve. And that for you guys is your health. It is your almost state of mind. It is consistency. So that you find a lot harder to naturally adapt or adopt into your life. And so, yeah, it's bringing that focus into there and setting yourself up. Taurus is building that foundation. So you guys should be taking on new health regimens, new exercise routines, and almost new ways to work, or new times to like take your break, or what you bring on your break, or like the coworkers that you're interacting with. There's some good change that you can work with. So I don't think that's a hard house to have energy in. But again, if you're just being blatantly unhealthy and just not listening to anything anyone's giving you advice on, that's when you run the risk of like doing some damage. Okay, so we have Capricorn. Capricorn, this is going to be happening in your fifth house. Ooh, great house. That's where you really feel the most strength, the most centeredness. And so you guys are going to be very well set up for this full moon. It's tough to be honest about our finances. It's tough to say that we don't have all the answers, to say that something unexpected can always happen and can always take us back into the boardroom and make us revisit everything that we set out to do the first time around. But knowing that you're capable of doing that when the time comes is very important, and you guys are always capable of adapting to new modes of business, new agendas, as long as they're within the rules and parameters of your role, you know, that's where you feel like you're best suited to do stuff. And the fifth house can be a very trying house. It can be like you're up against some very formidable opponents, you know, like if we're looking at politics right now in Scorpio season. That's where we decide, we elect who's going to be the leader, and that is very much Capricorn energy, because that is government. That is who's making the laws, who's enforcing them, who is, you know, kind of in that position that it's managing the nation in a way, managing the work, the interactions. It's a very big picture role to have. It's a big all-encompassing role, but it tends to operate on a very strict set of parameters and not a lot of progress. And so this will be a really interesting year to see how much we push the envelope and if people really rise to the occasion. So you guys are in a really interesting spot for this full moon. There is a lot of success prospect there. There's a lot of feel good associated with the fifth house. Is the pleasure house, and we like really know what we want and need for ourselves when we're looking at fifth house stuff. And so you guys know where you want to be down the road with Uranus playing on this moon, and yeah, you know you can do it. It's almost like finding a cheerleader, and maybe it's yourself. It may not necessarily be someone else in your life, but you're motivating yourself again, and that's really exciting to do. So Aquarius, we are almost done here. Aquarius, this will be happening in your fourth house. So fourth house, some family issues, you know, if you have maybe put on some weight recently, or just have some bad eating habits, a lot of that can happen. This is a really big one for you guys because your ruling planet of Uranus is right on top of the full moon. So this is almost as much of a full moon for Taurus as it is for you. So this is going to be some really dramatic, like money stuff. So there may be some money issues happening with your family, some disputes, some legal stuff. And it's quite a shock that this is almost being uncovered, you know. Uranus stuff brings out very unexpected viewpoints, like so somebody really thinks that they're right and can be very hard to talk them out of it. And you're just like, how can you not see how wrong you are right now? And so this maybe even political stuff coming up too, because this is really a very big political time. And so there's a lot of differences that we're having with our families and maybe some outdated viewpoints that they've grown up with and just not really evolving or trying to adapt to the direction that the world is trying to take right now. So there's some difficulties I see with this one for you guys, but there is the opportunity for success. Again, the moon is exalted when it's in Taurus, so that is a much more favorable place for it to be in, or a much more favorable sign. But yeah, you know, just roll with it. It'll move back. It'll move pretty quickly, and you guys have a lot of work to do. This is Scorpio season. The focus is on your 10th house. So even though we have a little bit of a fourth house moment, you'll get back to where you need to be with work and everything, and it'll almost be like you're, you know, recalibrating or buffering again. So I don't think it's like an end-all be-all thing, but it can be maybe a little more annoying or almost seemingly like unhelpful, but you are uncovering things. This is the investigative season, and so there is a lot of stuff coming to light out of the darkness, and that can be very polarizing, stuff that we didn't expect. Okay, and last but not least, Pisces. So Pisces, this is in your third house, so lots of confusion. Third house, not really happy right now with Mercury retro. You know, if with your loved ones, your partner, Mercury's in Libra, it's moving backwards into Libra, and again, you are naturally an empath. We were talking about this with Gemini and having that 12th house energy with this full moon. You know, your empathy can also be your downfall, because if you are unsure of what someone else is going through around you, or what that emotion really is, and it's kind of trying to take you over. It can be very hard to manage that, and Mercury retro can do just that. Like, it confuses us, it disconnects us, it, like, we're on different pages, we're in different books when we look at Mercury retro, you know what I mean? We're like, we're not even reading in the same genre, like, kind of a thing. And yeah, you know, it can bring out some school stuff, some childhood stuff, early learning. So, you know, reconnecting with people that you grew up with, maybe a high school flame or something like that, coming around. And, you know, it's not the worst placement. I would just say the third house is so neurotic, and it's so mentally, like, overstimulated that it can drive you guys crazy really easily, because you don't necessarily do well with that to begin with. You have Taurus in your third house, which is very much straightforward, like, focus on the practical, because you guys are almost like indecision incarnate. And so when you add more indecision of the duality of the third house, you're just like, ugh, you know, it's like way too much to handle. And you can feel very unfocused. And so, yeah, you may feel tripped up, like you don't really know where you're going or how this is playing out. You can kind of get in your head, psych yourself out a little bit, and just people can be very naturally confusing to you during this event. But I do think, you know, there is some stuff that you're going to learn. You're not going to learn everything, but little tidbits here and there. And Mercury can bring out some news, some letters, some information that we haven't known before. It's kind of like a mini investigator, focusing on, like, the hot button issues, the top stories of the day, whereas Scorpio is like the really darker stuff that becomes like the Netflix documentaries, like about like making a murder or something like that. It's like the really heinous stuff. So you guys are getting a little bit of that, but luckily you don't have to deal with all of that stuff. So take it for what it is and just keep on moving. That third house doesn't like to be stagnant. It likes to stay adaptable to whatever the day brings. And so don't get too inside your head. Just keep, you know, keep going. So that's all I have for you guys. This was a special edition trying to unpack this full moon. Please be safe. We never really know exactly how this stuff is going to play out until it does. That's one of the biggest ironies about astrology, is that we can try and predict the future, but you never get the full story until it's actually happened. And so then we're piecing it together afterwards. And yeah, I guess the past does play a big emphasis in understanding the future. So it's all related somehow. And take care. Enjoy it if you are doing anything, but be very mindful and safe. And yeah, more of these transit talks to come. If you've stuck on the video for this long, thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe. All right, take care.